My name is Sally Goddard-Blythe, and I have spent the last 35 years or more dedicated to trying to understand why children who are intelligent are unable to achieve to the level that should be expected in the classroom, and or maybe having various problems with social relationships at home or at school. The first question parents usually ask is, can you help my child? And a lot will depend on the symptoms and the problems that they are bringing to my door. So the most common things that we come across are children who are of average or above average intelligence, but they are just underachieving in one or several aspects of schooling. So it may be reading problems, it could be writing problems, it could be ability to sit still and pay attention, a whole range of problems that don't necessarily fit into a nice, neat diagnostic category. Many of the families I see have had 2 or 3 years of being batted back and forth between different professionals. And it's not that any individual professional hasn't done their job, they have, but there is a border across which they are not supposed to cross. And the child often does cross those borders in terms of their difficulties. So often they will have been seen by the GP first, who sent them to the developmental centre at the local hospital. The paediatrician will have done the first interview, then referred them perhaps to physiotherapy or occupational therapy for further assessment. And they will say, yes, there are some problems, but do you know, they're not quite bad enough. But perhaps there's some speech and language issues, so let's send them for speech and language assessment. So often they've waited 3 or 4 years to go through this assessment process. And there they are 4 years later, and nothing has actually been done to help the underlying problems that are preventing the child from succeeding. And our job is to see, can we identify the earliest point in development where something's gone a little bit sideways, and that gives us a clue as to what we need to do to try and help. We do it with a physical assessment, it's about a 2-hour physical assessment. Most of the tests are taken directly from mainstream medicine, and so they examine things like children's static and dynamic balance, patterns of motor development, fine motor skills. We may or may not look at whether they've developed a lateral preference, which is, are you primarily right-handed, right-footed, and so on. And then we have a look to see, do they still have a cluster of little infant reflexes that should not normally be active beyond the first year of life? And if they are, those little baby reflexes, called primitive reflexes, provide signposts of immaturity in the functioning of the central nervous system. So I think this was best described by one parent who said, basically what you're saying is my child is 10 years old on the outside and 3 years old on the inside. And this is exactly how he was. So he was intelligent, verbally very articulate, but when it came to writing something down, you were lucky if you get 1 or 2 lines of scribble. And he was very emotionally immature, so easily upset by things that wouldn't disturb other children. Body language that other children just picked up as being a little bit different, and therefore tended to be victimized in the playground. And so what you start to see is a whole set of problems building on one underlying slightly faulty mechanism.